So a friend of mine messaged me the other day and told me he was looking to start a business. And I was like, well, okay, what is it? A drop shipping store, a t-shirt company, the classics. But no, it was in fact, drum roll, a B2B business. So at first he had my interest, and then after that he definitely had my attention. So in this video, I'm going to be putting my B2B hat on, keeping my B2B hat on, and building him a B2B marketing plan from scratch for his commercial interior design company. I also kind of owe him on because he did design our office for us and this room that I'm sitting in right now. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? In this video, we're going to be covering all areas, starting from his business model, through to his target audience, through to his differentiation, positioning, messaging, and finally finishing off with what marketing channels he should be using and the approach. AKA, I'm going to be giving it the full works. I'm literally going to try and condense a full marketing degree and 12 years worth of B2B marketing experience into this short video. And for those of you who are new to this channel or haven't seen my face online before, my name's Ben. I've kind of spent my whole career in B2B marketing, starting at Ogilvy's B2B marketing branch, then moving in-house to a tech brand. And then after that, 7 years ago, I created Session Media, which is a B2B performance marketing agency, which has helped over 130 B2B brands with their marketing. So enough of the chatting, let's get into the video. And first off, the business model. Now, I know business model has a wider reaching purview of what I'm going to discuss today, but literally I just want to touch on, how he's going to be making money, how he's going to bring value to the market, what's his product, and like rough pricing, for example. Now, in a dream world, you'd have an audience you'd want to service, and then you go and create a product which really alleviated all of their pains. But in 99% of cases, when you start a company, you're just given a product or a service and its pricing, and you're told to go market it and you influence it where you can. So I'm going to try and hold true for that today, so it is the most valuable to you guys watching at home as well. Now, as mentioned, he wants to start a commercial interior design business. First and foremost, it may sound simple just saying, stating, what category you're in and what you're actually going to offer as your business model. But in this case, he sent me through a list of stuff that he wanted to offer his clients, and it's pretty much going to be consulting. And then when someone starts, it's going to manage the process from start to end. Now, just knowing this helps you really understand what category you're in, whether it's consulting, software, e-commerce, high and low end, which is really vital for the differentiation and positioning that we're going to run through later in this video. It also shows you roughly how much you can spend on marketing and if certain activities and channels are going to be worth it. Because if you're just selling consulting one-off calls, you don't really want to be spending loads and loads of money building a custom software or info product to be able to, and giving that away for free to actually then market your product, for example. So how do the unit economics work? And also it forces you to understand your stepping stone offers versus your cross sells. So what's going to be the main thing you market first to get people on board, and then how you're going to make money through cross sells and cross promotion moving forward. In this section, we're going to be looking at your TAM, which is your total addressable market, but then also how then you would narrow that down to something called an ICP, which is your ideal customer profile. And when you're small, like this company is, you ideally really only want to have like one ICP, unless you're super heavily funded. And then even then, if you're just starting out, one ICP is more than enough to keep you busy and to keep you growing in those early stages. Far too many times we've had this conversation where it's like, who do you want to target? And it's like everyone that has money who wants interior design. If we get 1% of the market, we're laughing. So different ways you can segment the market in itself would be things like looking at demographics. You can look at firmographics, looking at your industry or vertical you want to target, technographics, so what tech stack is the company using already, what are the psychographics, how do they think about certain areas and what they're after, and then behaviors. Ultimately, this is really where I think the power of defining who your best fit audience would be comes in, and it's really the foundations of all marketing, and everything you do kind of revolves around this, and your success of your strategy and your tactics moving forward, it really kind of lies on this foundation. So first and foremost, I looked at his portfolio to see what he does best, and narrowing it down slightly, it was primarily hospitality. But then looking even further down, and a subsect of hospitality was restaurant design. First and foremost, you have to go out and see if there's enough restaurants, for example, in the local area or the UK or whatever your catchment area is. Is there enough business out there for us to go and hit our goals? In this case, there definitely is. You really should just be focused on this one area, because not only does narrowing down to restaurants allows you to speak directly to your customer needs and narrow your messaging, cool, that would genuinely benefit from specialism. And that's really important when we get onto our differentiator next. Like I said, this guy doesn't need thousands of customers to go after all commercial or hospitality. He just needs half a dozen a year, and it's doing really, really well. Okay, so now we have the rough product and we can roughly know the segments that we're going to be going after. You can also then segment it further by the size of restaurant, how much it's growing. But at the moment, let's just leave it with, restaurant interior design of all shapes and sizes. We can always then see the ones that have the most appetite and feedback. In this context here, I'm obviously talking quite a lot about going off the sense of having very limited data. Normally you have like loads of CRM data. A lot of it is kind of creating this hypothesis of what we think is going to work, depending on our use cases, likelihood of winning and carving out a market, and also looking at the competitive landscape. And then you can kind of go back and you can change it. That's kind of the whole thing of marketing, right? Is finding what works, doing more of it and expanding into that. One thing most people forget in B2B marketing is you haven't got to directly market to these brands. You can also do something called channel marketing. And channel marketing is pretty much when you can promote or sell your service through intermediaries or third parties or just partners. So for interior design, I actually found a Reddit thread where most people found a lot of their contracts through things like architects. So people who are doing restaurants who are doing, may just get an architect in and then not want to pay for separate interior design. So then they white label it through an architect. The furniture suppliers, property developers, these are all really good channel partners. And it's all going to be part of our marketing plan and how we target these people in the future. Because if you market to brands, it's obviously one-to-one. If you successfully market to channel partners, they can then, every time they get a project and spend their marketing budget or, referral network winning that project, you then just plug straight into them. So if you can get these channel partners on board as well, super, super handy. So, solid target audience market you're going after, it's also going to help you pave the way for standing out in the mind of these channel partners as well. Which then brings me on to probably the most important part, which is differentiation. And ultimately, differentiation is how you make your brand stand out from competitors. And this is kind of where in most marketing world and most business world, it's the sea of sameness, right? It's the same with, just a quick search of interior design or commercial interior design or restaurant interior design. All the websites look and sound the same. They all offer interior design. They still have a photo or two of some of the interior designs that they've done. They all roughly cost the same. People also think differentiator means about like innovation, but in reality, if ChatGPT can be closely, imitated by Claude and Gemini and everything else quickly, it's kind of one of those things where people can be out in front from a tech perspective for a bit, but then they'll be caught up. So the only real differentiator you have is by finding a really tight target audience market you want to go after and then making your use case the best one for them. And when you think about differentiator again, it needs to be tangible. It can't just be things like, we offer the best customer support, because that's not tangible, right? That's abstract. You want to go as tangible as possible, and you have abstract over there. So you want to kind of find somewhere which is something that is falsifiable and something they can really, really picture. But it needs to be sort of like something that you can taste, as it were. So it's got to be the 3 C's. It's got to be, what can your company deliver, what your competitors don't offer, and ultimately what your customer wants. Unfortunately, a lot of people can do the first 2 C's that your company deliver and, your competitors don't offer, but no one actually cares in the market about it. So in the context of my friend's interior design business or restaurant interior design business, potentially, if he takes my advice, he doesn't have to. He's kind of got the fact that he wants to go after restaurants. Again, that is a niche in itself, but why restaurants? He's obviously got some case studies. Other people are going to have case studies in restaurants too. So it's the foundation and table stakes, but it's not quite a differentiator yet. It also has the drawings that we went through, which I think is a really lovely way to market it. But I think in a lot of cases, especially bigger companies, kind of just want the result. They don't really care how you get to it. So it might be seen as like a bit of a gimmick. That's kind of like the foundation. He's got the, the drawings, the custom build. He's going to be, doing it as the founder to start with. That's how probably his positioning would change over time when you hire staff, for example. This is kind of when you need to go and look and, see what your competitors are doing and ultimately find something different. Now, I did a search, and again, I don't know if this would resonate in the market, so I don't know it. You need to go out there and actually look at current customers and what they like about your service, but also market sentiment, what people want from these designs. But you can also go out there and be a bit, risque. I also want to kind of put it as like design focused bottom line driver. So for example, it would be great if we could measure things like social mentions before and after the design was done, and how many people had tagged the design compared to how many people were tagging it before. Also things like, changes in booking and footfall, how busy it's been since the redesign off the back of that. I think the third one is probably secondary. I think what would be really smart is if we could go back over the previous restaurant redesigns before and after my friend had done, and said before it was only getting spoken about 5 times a month. Now it's been spoken about, 100 times a month because people love the design, the aesthetic. It's kind of inviting more people to take photos. And it's almost like interior design, which is like your biggest marketing asset. And I think if you can have the fundamentals of your social proof of the stuff you've designed before, you have your credibility as someone who, has worked in the industry and understands it for, 10 years. And then you have the drawings actually to showcase your process, and you actually, pay attention to detail, and it's not just like an AI image. And then on top of that, you say, we've actually on average driven 400 times increase in people speaking about your brand. That is a differentiator, right? And obviously you need to make sure the market sentiment, people care about that stuff and they just don't want something pretty from a big brand, whatever. I'm sure that'll be some of them. Now onto positioning. And once I've got my differentiator, I kind of like to plot it roughly on a graph, so like have my 2 axes. But in this, it'll be specialism. So how specialized is yours in that certain industry, and how business outcome focused is it? And our friend would be up here, and you go away and you benchmark, other customers are offering this or companies are offering this. Are they quite generalized? Because then you can speak to that. Are they going to do it in-house, which they have the specialism, but they're not business income focused? Are they doing it through architects, which obviously aren't specialized? So I think it's a really important way to go and visualize in the market, do you actually have a distinct offer? And in your minds of your customers, you want to be known as the restaurant people who are, outcome focused on driving more marketing and brand for you. You can go and spend thousands doing it. You can mock it up quickly. I think it depends what stage you're at. I just like to have a positioning idea of, what we're going after to see where I want to appear in the minds of the customer, because it's a really good way of seeing if you have a positioning problem, that if your existing customers and people who read your website both think you do different things, you have a positioning problem. So it's really nice just to have this mocked up and one of those fundamentals. Now we have an idea of what we're offering, which is interior design to restaurants. We have an idea of what makes us different, which is going to be bottom line growth based off previous use cases and setting up social listening. We now have an idea of how we're positioned, or we want to be positioned in the mind of the customers. This is when we now get into marketing. Most people just jump straight into this step, right? Where they go and try and do marketing and messaging without actually understanding any of the things we've discussed. And that's where most things start to go wrong, because if you do that, then you're just going to be amplifying confusion, and everyone's going to be confused, and it's just a muddle the same, right? So we kind of have like a framework. So for example, if we take the differentiator and what your positioning is and turn it into a forward-facing value prop, you could be something like, we design interiors for ambitious restaurants. They don't just look good, they become your biggest marketing asset. So that's your forward-facing value proposition. And then if you want to then translate that to your website, again, which is going to be one of your big assets, you could, be a bit clever with it, and you could be like, restaurant interior design that makes you more bread, because bread and restaurants, again, you can be more boring and, do it more aligned with the value proposition I just went through. But like, we offer beautiful end-to-end interior design services for ambitious restaurants. So they not only look good, but act as your biggest marketing asset. So that's your value prop. And you can go onto our work, and you have that average 400% increase in Instagram tags, 50 projects worldwide. I just knocked this, wireframe up in a couple of minutes just to illustrate the point. You can then have your logos here. And then what I really like is your positioning. So with, obviously generic design, with, design that brings people back, you can kind of go through what would happen if they chose someone that you positioned yourself against versus with you. And then you can go into your value props around, working in the market, the custom drawings, working with the founder, makes you money, case studies, other services, the process, all of that stuff. If you really want a template to go and implement this for your own B2B business, we've actually created this template you can go and download. I'll whack it in the link below, which is an unbounced template we created, where you have your form, you have your website, your titles up here, your 3 different titles up here. Obviously, you have this little scrolling thing. You have the biggest pain points your audience are having, like we just discussed, and how you position against it. You have your testimonials, you have your benefits, solutions, videos, features, call to action, frequently asked questions. So it's a really nice starting point. So we kind of got it all covered for you guys. Now, okay, so we have the foundations of everything and the website, and we've really clearly positioned ourselves. We now need to amplify and get our message out there. So there's a few different ways you can do this. If I had to narrow it down to 2 activities, in this case, it'd be demand capture. So it'd be capturing people who are currently looking for what it is you offer. And also then on the other side would be branding, or if you want to get a bit more performance-led, something called demand gen. From a demand capture side, in this case, I would look at doing something like Google Ads, which I speak a lot about on my channel, so make sure you subscribe. And if you go into this, you can kind of go down and take a quick look at restaurant interior design in the UK, fast food restaurant interior design. There's not loads of searches, but there'd be a good few thousand of long tail variations of this search per month. And then what I do is go and create a really tight ad group. I'll link down to how you create Google Ads, a full Google Ads campaign in our Google B2B Google Ads or paid search playlist, which includes Bing as well. I'd bid on these keywords really tight, and then I'd use the ad copy to really showcase the value proposition, which would be like the ROI, focused design, custom drawings. So I'd go and test those proposals out there because people really neglect ad copy there, and then send them to that high converting landing page. So this will be demand capture if you really want to get off the ground running. Again, the CPCs of these are at £1.20, which is really, economical if you look at the fact that I reckon there will be more than this. This is actually normally a little bit off. Go back to the beginning when you actually look at what you're selling. If you're selling something that's worth £10,000-20,000 a pop, £1.20, you should be maxing out your impression share for this and appearing every single time across Google and Bing. You guys all broaden up to commercial interior design. Commercial interior design is slightly higher, $900 a month, but it goes to show that restaurant interior design is a really big subset, and I think it'd be a really good, one to go after and really create that tight Google Ad accounts, landing page experience. Now, from a demand gen and branding side, running something like LinkedIn ads would be amazing. And LinkedIn ads, you'd be able to create really cool assets. I think you do a lot of play on words around that makes you more bread, some really nice assets. I think using those videos as like a way to showcase the illustration. It's like a talking head like this, where it's like, we helped at this restaurant increase their footfall by 3 times after the redesign. Here's the drawing we did. Here's the process we went through. This is how long it took. These are other case studies we work with. I think a really visual design, because in most cases, when you're marketing for something which is visual, you want to show them. There's no point in writing about something which is visual or doing an audio podcast around something that's visual. Show them the designs, show them the process, show them your face. All that stuff is trust in consultancy, and that's how you amplify your value prop. From a LinkedIn perspective, I'm not going to go too much into actually creating LinkedIn ad campaigns, because on this channel, if you follow us before, I'm absolutely obsessed with LinkedIn ads. So rather than just giving you how to set these up and the types of ads and the biggest mistakes people fall for on LinkedIn, I'll link to my playlist video here, because you can not only advertise to the direct restaurants, you can also advertise to all your architects and all your channel partners that I mentioned too. So I hope you found this video useful, guys. Any questions, as always, just leave them in the comments, and speak to you very soon.